Okay, I think we're live. Thank you everyone for watching today. This is our last Facebook Live that we're doing this year in 2020. Not too long, so it's nearly 5 o'clock. So we're gonna enter the new year shortly. But yeah, I mean, it's a quick live. If you're watching this, if you could just kindly share this in any groups or WhatsApp groups you're in, and if you could kindly post a comment to let us know you could hear us okay. Um, yeah, and yeah, so it's just a quick review of what we've done this year and what our plans are for next year. So, James, over to you.
Well, I mean, I thought just do a chat back and forth, Yassine. But what a year it has been. I don't know. I, have you ever? I mean, could you ever, Yassine, have imagined this time last year that we would have had the year we've just had? What a year it has been. I don't know. Oops, can you hear me? You're muted, Yassine.
Yeah, James, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll be back in 1 minute. Yeah, just go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I was just no, I was asking you, Yassine, if you could ever imagine that we would have had the year we've just had this time last year. I'm not sure he can hear me. All right. Well, I'll carry on. It's been an incredible year in many ways, incredibly difficult, but also in many ways incredibly successful too. So thank you to everybody for joining us. I mean, I'm really proud that here we are standing at the end of the year, what we set out to do this year when we went for independence. It was a tough choice, but it was the right choice in the end to go independent. And now we can say proudly at the end of the year that we've now, yet again, the largest private hire courier representative trade union for workers in the United Kingdom. It's an astonishing achievement that we've reached that scale so quickly. So thank you to everybody who's had their confidence in us together to create this union that's been so amazingly successful and so powerful so quickly. And of course, it's a journey. It's a journey. We started in 2015 as United Private Hire Drivers Association. And then when we disaffiliated from the IWGB earlier this year, we chose a brand that was kind of representative of where we were going and where the industry is going. And what we're seeing with all the big platforms are looking to disintegrate, if you like. So it's kind of, we're seeing many private hire drivers around the country doing deliveries now. Partly it's been accelerated by COVID-19 because the work has just dried up, but also I think that's been the kind of journey that these operators are going on, that they'll be pushing everybody into that direction anyway. So we're seeing lots of drivers doing that kind of dual role, delivering a parcel 1 minute, or fast food, and then a passenger the next. So it made sense for us to begin to look at that more of an integrated workforce, doing an integrated job, but also looking very closely at the technology itself, App Drivers and Couriers Union. And here we've been, again, kind of borne out, not just by the way the front end of the job is changing, which is drivers are, like I said, doing that integrated role of food and parcel delivery as well as passenger delivery, but it's also happening at the back end as well. I mean, if you look at Uber's acquisition earlier this year of Autocab, well, you can see now Uber is going to control the front of the market and the back of the market as well. And that's really tricky. Now, you think of the trick that Amazon has, been accused of, that, you set up your little business on Amazon, and Amazon then is watching what you're doing, and all of a sudden they see a very fast growing niche area, and then they decide they're going to jump in on top of that. That's always the risk with running your business on Amazon, or at least people have been worried about that. That's what's happening. But this is what Uber is going to do. If they run Autocab in the background, they'll be watching all these operators in the cities where they're not, and they'll be seeing what kind of a business it is, and then maybe they'll decide to jump in and take it over. That's the risk that operators face at the back end of their business, as well as we face at the front end of the business, with sort of collapsing yields and fixed price model that's been so difficult for people. But
yeah, James. Yeah. So just generally speaking, so we've got a lot of audience here today. 51
good.
people.
Good.
So it's good. So it's good. Yeah, I mean, let's just talk through it. So let's just talk through step by step what we achieved this year. I mean, we formed back in 2015 when we first started off with nothing. Yeah, and we come a long way. So let's just, I mean, it's going to be difficult to talk about each and every campaign and the successes we achieved over the years, but let's just talk about the highlight of this year and go through it one by one, and then move on to next year. And I think a lot of drivers are off today, and thank you for watching. So we have quite a few guys. We have Alfie from Glasgow, who's the chair for Glasgow, watching us. So
happy Hogmanay. Can Alfie come in if he wants to?
Yeah, Alfie, I mean, if you could come and join us, please. Yeah, that would be good to have you. Yeah,
we had some great wins in Glasgow this year, which we should all be really proud of. Also,
so let me just send that link to Alfie.
Well, while you're doing that, I absolutely agree. Yes, what I was just talking through when you were off was that we had this vision that that the role was changing, the job was changing, COVID was changing everything, and this rebrand to ADCU and this strive for independence has really been the right thing to do. And that strategy has been really borne out. But Yassine, the other big thing that happened this year, that you were kind of instrumental in this, is setting up the international organization. You want to talk a little bit about that, IAATW?
Yeah, okay. So just generally, I'm not sure, like some of the people have been following us. So earlier this year in January, we had the first international event of drivers from around the world. And the good thing about it is ADCU, App Drivers Encouraged Union, we're part of the steering committee in the International Alliance. So we're working with drivers from 23 different countries. So they're like big players such as New York Taxi Workers Alliance, rideshare drivers in LA, in California. We're working with the drivers in Philly. We're working with drivers around Europe. So that's quite important, because especially the campaign or the case we launched a few weeks ago for the data, that involved the guys and the connection we had around Europe. And at the same time, we're working with the guys in India. We're working with the guys in Australia. And so there's a lot of exciting things happening. So as we go forward as an alliance, hopefully we'll be fully set up by next year. Well, coming up in January, February. So what it means is it's not just ADCU fighting operators such as Uber and Ola. It's internationally, globally, us, the drivers, are fighting together, globally, internationally. So whether we fight in India, we're part of it. So whatever we do here, we have comrades and fellow drivers supporting us in different countries around the world, and we're working together. We're sharing that knowledge, we're sharing resources. So that's something that no other union in the UK is actually working internationally with drivers, and that's a massive achievement for us guys to actually get that. So don't forget, like, these companies such as Uber, they rely on drivers being isolated. But we're no longer isolated. We broke that barrier. We're not just here focused around London. We're actually a national, like James earlier mentioned about Glasgow. So we're active in all these cities, but not just these cities. We're active now internationally in other countries. And I think James will talk about the case in Holland slightly later on. But again, like, that shows the power we managed to, the struggle, like how far we have come since we started back in 2015. But yeah, go ahead, James.
It's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey, and you're right, Yassine. I mean, that was a great piece of work that it took. I mean, I saw what you were doing. It took you probably 6 months to put that together. That international alliance. I mean, it was an amazing achievement, but it really does give that international solidarity is really important. It's also really frightening for big platforms, Uber Free Now, and so on. But I was just looking. I mean, I was looking at Portugal, for example, where we have one of the, some workers there have joined the data case, but 53 pence. It's 59 cents euros, but which is about 53 pence per mile. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
I mean, it's outrageously low. We think it should be £2 a mile, but imagine it's 53 pence a mile down in Lisbon, driving around your car. And I know the cost of living is a bit cheaper down there, but you compare the rents. The vehicle rents are about 250 euros, which is kind of our territory for renting a vehicle. I don't know how those guys are surviving, but it just shows, you've got to, you've got to recognize that the resistance that we have done and that we will continue to do has actually really helped hold the line, because, we need to be careful. We need to hold that line, but we don't underestimate how much these operators still want to take away from us. So it's really important to hold the line and to have our international allies to do that. Yassine, to review the year, I mean, what's the big story? COVID-19. Hit us.
Yeah.
See that coming.
So we started off with the International Alliance, which is done so brilliant. And as we said, next year is going to be even better. So the next thing about is it's unfortunate. And this was, it is like something that we never, ever imagined that we would be dealing with. COVID-19, and I come into this to help drivers, and I mean, that was not something that we, like me personally, like it was the hardest part in the whole, the time we've been campaigning, seeing people like Ayub that we lost. He was one of our active members, seeing drivers, income go down, drivers getting ill. So it's grateful that we were able to raise the case. James, you want to just talk about the case that we started off back in?
So we had a really, in some ways it's a success, in some ways it's a terrible failure. But I mean, firstly, the tragedy. Look, as you can say, you can always make more money, but you can't get another life. And it was devastating to lose somebody like Ayub Akhtar this year, and others. There was many others lost. And the government's own statistics office said that the highest death rate of any occupation, private hire, was in the top 3. So it's very difficult and it's very deadly in terms of the risk. And it was terrible to lose Ayub and so many other friends. But what we were doing is we were pushing hard on Transport for London, Department for Transport, Department for Health, to define standards and to define protections. And we began the action for a High Court review. In the end, we didn't have to push through with it, because in a way it's successful. What you want to do is you want to avoid litigation, and we were able to do that by pushing and squeezing TfL and the Department for Transport so hard that they did in the end have to come out, and they did have to define the risk and what needed to be done. Now you can argue what they've done is not adequate, but that's as far as you were going to get in a high court environment anyway, because the judge is not going to sit there and say, well, you must do this, that, and the other. That's not the judge's job. Judge's job is to say, have you done it? And they hadn't done it, and we've actually forced them into doing it. But let's be honest, the situation around the country is terrible. I mean, what's happened in London is that this disease is airborne, in droplets. And so it's true that if you put up a physical barrier between you and your passenger or somebody who's infected, and it's not going to be get out of jail free card. It's not going to give you 100% protection, but a barrier is going to give you some protection, which is better than nothing. And we had a terrible situation in London where the taxi trade and the big operators lobbied TfL. Well, they lobbied the central government as well, but they lobbied TfL to say, if the drivers are going to put in barriers, then they'd have to be manufacturer certified, which is impossible to do. Even Addison Lee couldn't do it. Addison Lee were on the right side of this because they lost a lot of drivers as well. Lost at least 2 or 3.
They'd have to be manufacturer certified.
And
Addison Lee couldn't do it. They were on the right side of this because they lost a lot of drivers as well.
What Addison Lee ended up doing was putting in barriers, but TfL made them take them all down again. And so drivers in London are now really without barriers, which is a tragedy and travesty. I mean, well done to somebody like Azim in Nottingham. He arranged to buy in bulk barriers, which he distributed to drivers at a lower cost than they could get elsewhere. But those drivers in Nottingham were allowed to put up the temporary protections. Well done to Alfie and the boys in Glasgow for making sure that was done in Glasgow as well. But here in London, drivers are still not protected by barriers, and that's a problem. And we'll talk about 2021 in a minute, but that's the big story. And of course, we defended a lot of drivers and making sure that they were paid out by Uber through that insurance system. But also we lobbied and pushed hard, and that's why it was really important to hit the government hard early. We were the first ones out there doing that. We were the first ones into legal action. And as a result of that, we were able to make sure that private hire drivers would be included in this government bailout system, which is still operating about 80%, which is, look, not good, but better than nothing. It's certainly better than anything you'd ever get in America. We need to make sure that we keep on top of that. But COVID-19 has been a disaster, but hey, nature is nature. What else, Yassine?
Yeah, I mean, just capping back to Azim, Nottingham, he done a great job. Alfie and even Barry, we got a massive shout out to Barry because he was enrolled back in Glasgow, and also Colin in Edinburgh. So it wasn't easy to get the council there to agree to some kind of. So they did put on a good fight for the drivers there. And they were able to achieve it. And it's just sad the way TfL dealt with the whole scenario with us guys, where we had to get the screen taken off, and most importantly, we had more drivers that were actually passed away because of this virus. But yeah, that's it. So next thing is in Nottingham, the achievement that Azim achieved for tour operators. If you just want to quickly touch on that, James?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the rule is, and it is in some other towns as well, is that the council haven't been lobbied and controlled by operators for years, come up with this rule on grounds of safety, right? That you can only work for one operator at a time. It boggles my mind how you can be safe to work for one operator, but you wouldn't be safe to work for two. But that's the racket that the operators were pulling to make sure that drivers would have less choice, and drivers with no rights would have even less choice. But well done to Azim. He managed to overturn that table, and now drivers in Nottingham have a choice. They can work for multiple operators. But it's still a rule in other cities around, like Leeds, I think, still has that rule, and Sheffield does as well.
Sheffield has, yeah. So I mean, the good thing is, because of Azim, or because of the campaign and run in Nottingham, we're now able to replicate that in other cities. Yeah. So this is the purpose of being part of a union. And having these branches in different cities, because if we win something, for example, like as we have in Nottingham, we could then go to other councils and try and push for the same kind of stuff, which we were able to do with Solihull Council, where we were able to overturn the tinted issues. So yes, so that's the thing. But at the same time, with Nottingham, we also want to give a massive shout out to Nadia, MP.
Oh yeah.
I'll let you touch on that, James. And again, I think.
Oh no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I'll let you go, James. I'll ask you the question, and you just summarize them quickly. Yeah, let's just go through it.
Look, the thing with Nadia Whittome is the MP. She's the youngest MP in Parliament, one of the most progressive too. But she has a view that she will only accept an industrial wage for her job. So whatever that amounts to, I think an MP's salary is about 72,000. But she gives away the balance to organisations that she feels are doing important work. And look, here we are in our first full year as resumed as an independent organisation, and Nadia Whittome MP donated a portion of her salary to all of us to continue the good work that we're doing, and DeZima has been doing in particular in Nottingham, so that those resources will be earmarked for that constituency area. But I mean, thank you to Nadia. But I mean, I don't know about you, Yassine, but it makes me very proud when somebody like Nadia is donating her salary to the ADCU. It tells you we're doing something right, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, most of, like, when we're fighting this fight, it's all about lobbying politicians, and the whole idea of going to politicians is so they could raise your voice in parliament. But here we got something else, because and it just shows that we're doing the right thing for her to come out, open her purse, and give us some money. Yeah. So yeah.
But tell us about you had some interesting experience down in South Oxfordshire. You and Dario, I think, went to war there, didn't you?
Yeah, so we're getting a lot of membership around South Oxfordshire, which is quite good. And at the same time, we managed to overturn 2 cases. One of them was for a driver who had his license revoked based on the fact that he was licensed at another council and he didn't declare that on his application form. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, like, we're not like, the point is here, look, we've been doing this for years and years, and over the years we have managed to build a reputation where we're able to, fight for our members, whether it's at a licensing council, yeah, and we have achieved some good results in helping guys protect their livelihood. Now, the best bit about this, and looking back at the last 6 months, in fact, if I look at the last 5 years we've been campaigning, what makes me feel more happy about what we achieve under ADCU is we're able to help drivers with their livelihood, and we could help them with their licensing issue. So, for example, we have quite a few cases going on at the moment. We have one in Leicester. So, if Salman, I think he's watching us today, we have a case there representing a member. We have a case actively going on in Birmingham City Council for a driver who couldn't, who basically his license expired, but based on lockdown, he wasn't able to do his medical. So the council refused to give him his license, but we were able to instruct a solicitor to go out and represent him. So what makes me feel good is it's not me or James doing these cases. We actually get qualified people and we pay them to represent you. So as a member or a driver, you have the right people and expert people representing you should there be a problem. We're not using any kind of, like, people that never ever done any kind of licensing case, or people trying to test the market using you as a guinea pig. We got people that got experts, like, for example, Anthony Sheila is one of the solicitors that we use around Midlands. Yeah. He been in the industry as a solicitor representing licensing cases for the last 30 years. We have Abbas that we use in London. We have a separate solicitor firm for Scotland. Yeah. So the point is, if, let's say, you're in Glasgow and you got a problem, you need to be at a licensing council. The best thing about being a member is, we got your back, and we have proved it over the last few months. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that's the key difference. As an independent organization, it's allowed us to really focus our attention and focus our resources. Previously, we had 2 votes out of 27. And we were relying on a generalized, if you like, service, often of people who are not particularly qualified and certainly have no experience in public licensing, public law. And what we're seeing is, well, we've got a lot of expertise within the team now on being able to make those first line appeals, and then we go straight to hiring licensing lawyers, because you don't mess around with that. It's your livelihood, and if you lose your license, that's it. And we can't always save somebody's license, but if it can be saved, it will be. And you have to understand this: the odds are stacked against you when you go to magistrates court. If you've got a licensing decision made against you by the Council of Transport for London, you go to magistrates court, because the magistrates court, the judge is a civilian, and the standard of law is far lower than in a criminal case. In a criminal case, they have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. That gives you a good fighting chance. In a civil law and a licensing matter, you have to prove on the balance of probabilities, is TfL right or not? Well, TfL is going to be there and you're going to be there. Who is this amateur judge going to believe? So it's really important that you have expert representation. And that was the key thing, that we wanted to make sure that we were going to always be able to represent our members on licensing issues, and couriers as well, even though they're not publicly licensed, but at least on the tech front, we're all on a common platform. It makes sense. So that's been a great gift this year, is to see that we're, and the other thing too is that, Yassine's mentioned a couple of names of lawyers we use. The thing you need to understand also is that this whole industry has been infested by really bad lawyers. And the danger is, if you're trying to do this by yourself and you take out the yellow pages, if we don't even have yellow pages anymore, but you know what I mean. There's so many bad lawyers who rip off artists in the whole licensing, private hire, whatever. And you're charging, I hear guys being charged £6,000, £8,000, £10,000. It's just terrible. So, if you rely on your license, you need to be in a union like ADCU, I would reckon. And then you look across the taxi industry, that's the way it is too. Unite dominate outside London through their dedicated taxi focus, and biggest union in the country. But then in London, it's the LTDA, and that's all they do is taxi drivers. And we came to the realization that's the way we would have to be as well. Northampton, Yassine, another good win there.
Yeah, Northampton, James, again, I was about to bring that up, but just before we move on to Northampton, just want to finish off at London. So as James just sort of touched on it, we've done a lot of cases, and funny thing is, even though drivers ain't working as much as they were prior to the pandemic, we're getting TfL compliance officers coming down harder and harder on drivers. For example, let's say you're picking up a passenger and your passenger's not wearing a mask, and next minute it's the passenger reporting you to Uber or Ola, or Ola and Uber are then reporting to TfL, and next minute you get TfL coming to you trying to revoke your license, conducting a fitness review. Now, for all the guys watching, it's very important that if TfL do contact you, especially to do with your license, and you got a notice of fitness for review where your livelihood is potentially at stake, I would highly recommend, if you're not a member of the union, is to contact a solicitor. If you're a member of the union, contact us. Now, one of the, again, based on the last 4 or 5 years, I have, I'm so grateful for the success we're getting. More or less, our success rate has been 100%. 100%. Touch wood, I hope it stays that way. But it goes to show that we're doing the right thing. We know how to represent our members. We know how to challenge it. And even like the likes of TfL, they know we're not a pushover. We will fight all the way to help you. So if you get any letter, notice of fitness, always either contact the union. You could send us an email to office@adcu.org.uk. Or like your regional rep, so we could do that for you and we could help you. Or if you're not a member, we can recommend a solicitor for you that will do it for you. But don't try to attempt it, because we get a lot of drivers coming to us after they try to do it themselves. And as Jay mentioned, we get a lot of bad people in this trade, and it's having a knock-on effect on all of us. So that's just sort of so TfL, we're doing quite well at the moment. So let's move on to
we're going to Northampton, remember?
Yeah, Northampton. But also one case we were able to help a member in Wolverhampton, where again his license was getting revoked based on a complaint Uber made against him. Again, we won that, we overturned that, and the best bit is we actually paid a solicitor to represent the driver at the first line appeal within the council. So this wasn't full blow in court. And it goes to show that if we could kill these cases before they go to court, it makes your life a lot easier, because potentially, especially if your license gets revoked and you can't work during that period, that means you're out of work for 6 months, maybe a year, and the cost goes up in terms of legal costs. So basically the point is, look, we're winning. We won a case in Wolverhampton, and I'll let James move on to Northampton and talk about Northampton, the case we're doing there.
Well, I mean, a big, we're seeing regional consolidation in these cities. So, in Northampton, Milton Keynes, there's the one or two operators. Hello, Azim, long time no see. We're seeing these operators integrate more and more. There's a lot of consolidation of big operators locally. But you've got a quite aggressive operator in Northampton that has been victimizing drivers there. We fought back. That operator went to court to try and get our case thrown out and get our two claimants there disqualified. He failed utterly, abysmally, in a humiliating way, and our caravan continues down the road. Now, look, the point with these cases is that we wish we didn't have to do these cases. We wish that we could have a sensible, grown-up conversation with some of these operators. But these operators have been abusing workers for so long that they don't get it. And maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll sit down and be reasonable, and we can work something out. But that's the process we're in. Wish we didn't have to do it, but by God, we will do it. And we'll reach a point in this industry where workers have a fair shake, and that's what we're achieving. Glasgow, I don't know if you got Alfie on, but in November, those boys in Glasgow were taking on the council up there over the local. All the councils were able to apply for a pool of COVID money from central government. And some councils decided that they would use that money for taxi and private hire relief, and some didn't. So, for example, Azim in Nottingham just found out that Nottingham didn't actually earmark any of that money for taxi and private hire drivers. And he's asking the question, why? Up in Glasgow, Alfie and Barry and the boys there were able to extract some kind of a commitment from the council that there will be relief in Scotland. For drivers there. It's been big relief in Northern Ireland. So it's far from the end of the story, but protest worked, and our voice, ADCU voice in Glasgow, was heard, and results were gotten. And they've got the protections that they need in Glasgow for the barrier protections. Not in Edinburgh, but in Glasgow, yes. So well done to those guys. So some great work going on. I'll talk about the legal challenge on the data front as well. Look, what are we trying to do? And I know I've talked a lot about it recently, but we need to get control of our data together so that we can understand if we're earning enough, what's the impact of the new fare structure. I know it affects our friends at the airport greatly because they were on fixed fares before and now they're on lower fixed fares. It seems to pass the risk to you. So you've got lots of LTNs in London now, low traffic network or low traffic neighborhoods. So a lot of circumventing around. Well, who's going to take the risk of the time and circumvention of that? You, I guess, right? This takes you longer time, a longer distance. That's on you, not on Uber. So we need to take a look at that more closely, but it's important that we get our hands on our data so we can aggregate it and we can understand who's making money and when and where and who isn't. That's the first bit, that transparency. The second bit is algorithmic management. This algorithmic control. How is the work dispatched to you? Who's fed and who's starved in this job? That's what we're challenging for in court. So those are the first two steps. Then the third step, which is really, really important, is unfair deactivations. There's been a lot of brutal deactivation of drivers. There's been the introduction of surveillance technology this summer, the selfie combined with other stuff, geolocations. We've got a slew of drivers that were thrown off the platform and immediately revoked from TfL. Immediately. Not even like normally you could get to appeal. You continue to work while you appeal. Nope, immediate revocation at TfL. And I know that those drivers are absolutely innocent of being wrongly accused. And so we're taking those cases to court as data protection cases. The first time it's been done under GDPR, because you've got the right to access your data. You've got a right to explanation of algorithmic management, including how the work is being dispatched. And thirdly, you've got a right to protection from unfair decision-making by the black box that throws people out of work. So we had a court hearing on December 16th. There'll be a judgment sometime in the future in a couple of months. And we've filed and refiled stuff just for the end of this year. We've been busy all December doing it on the unfair deactivations, automated decision making, and that case will be heard. So there'll be a preliminary hearing at the end of January, and then the full hearing sometime after that, and a result after that sometime in the spring. It's really exciting work. We're going to step that up, but what you can do is register on adcu.org.uk/WIE. Please register so that we can batch the subject access requests and ask for our data together. Finally, Yassine, Supreme Court.
Yeah, Supreme Court. Yeah, so we got Wasim watching. Assalamu alaikum, brother Wasim. Long time haven't seen you. And we also have Suleiman again from Leicester. We have Mir watching us from and Altaf, man, I've missed you. You need to be yeah, I mean, Altaf was one of our regular guys at Hackney's Chinese Centre. We also have Zamir from Heathrow.
Hello, Zamir.
Yeah. And I had a letter stating 9 comes to pay over 6 years. Okay, Wasim, if you could call me later on, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. Right now we're just mainly, this is just for the public. So if you could private message me, or I'll call you in about half an hour's time, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. So as you're all aware, we launched a case against Uber for worker status back in 2015. So since then, Uber has been fighting us. So we won in the initial appeal in 2016 and 2017. We won in the High Court. So Uber then decided to appeal this in the Supreme Court. So we had our appeal hearing. So there were 7 judges there back in July. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's just been such a long wait. So we had the hearing in July, but we still haven't got an outcome. Now, myself, I'm actually quite confident that we will win. I'm not sure about James, how confident he is, but we won so many times in the same argument. But I do think this is the way forward, especially with the case we have. We started in December against Uber and Ola in Amsterdam. And with the workers' status together combined, it's the way forward for our drivers. So we're still waiting for an outcome. As soon as we know when it's gonna be, we'll let you guys, or we'll put it on our Facebook, on social media, and we'll contact all our members. So if any drivers want to join that case, just reach out to us. And as James just mentioned, I'll put the link up here so you can see the link for the data, the action that we recently got going on. Again, as James mentioned, the outcome for that is going to be around February. So don't leave it till too late. Start doing it now. It's very important that we get this data. As just Wasim just put a comment up, you know, like this is exactly the reason why we should be getting this data, so we know what complaints are sitting on Uber's system, and those complaints are affecting the way we're getting our jobs. Yeah. So until you don't know about it, you can't challenge it. So it's no point having TfL contact you 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years down the line, telling you about, you know, complaints that are made, you know, years ago against you, and potentially those complaints are affecting the way you're getting your job and the amount you're earning. So this is why it's important to get that data and understand it, and you have a right to it. Yeah, so that's the worker status done. What else was it, James?
Well, I think what we're going to talk about now is what to look out for in 2021, and then we're going to wrap up.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, James. Yeah, go
ahead. Well, yeah, I look on 2021. Pretty soon we're going to get a decision on the Supreme Court case. I agree. I think we're going to win that case. The question for me is what happens then? What happens after that? How does Uber and others adapt to that environment, whatever that new legal environment will be? And also, how does the government get involved? Because the government did this review of the gig economy as a result of our case. They literally within weeks of us launching the case, the government had announced the review. They got the outcome from that review, but they haven't done anything yet. And I think they're kind of waiting again to see what the Supreme Court decides, and then they'll decide how to respond to it. I think the other thing to look out for is multi-apping. What do you do, you know, when you work for two? You know, we at the moment in our case, we have protection because in the facts in our case is that me and Yassine and Steve and Hadi and all the boys were only working for one app. There was only one app at the time. But now there's multi-apping. So, is the Supreme Court going to grasp that nettle or not? We don't know. But some sooner or later that has to be dealt with. So we'll see some detail around that. But the fact is, we'll have to keep fighting no matter what happens. No matter what happens in this case, we'll have to keep fighting. But as bad as things are, I mean, this is imagine our colleagues in California. This is the advantage again of being in an international alliance. They won in the courts the kind of status that we've gotten now, in fact, a greater status. And what you're allowed to do in California is when there's an election, a general election, which there is every 4 years, you can put a ballot into the mix, right? Which is just like a referendum, it's a bit like our Brexit referendum. Do you want in and out of Europe or whatever? You can add these to the general election ballot. And Uber put 400 million into this ballot, Uber, Instacart, Lyft, to overturn what was decided in the courts to give those drivers protection, to say these app drivers should have no protection, yes or no. And then they went on this fear-mongering campaign to consumers to say, it'll be expensive, you lose access, low-deprived communities won't have access. And the ballot succeeded, and Uber's stock price went up to a record high. And workers there now have no protection. I don't know. I can't imagine how my heart goes out to them. They won in court and had it snatched away just like that on the back of a big PR campaign. I digress. What to look out for in 2021? Number one, COVID-19. I don't know what to say. We've now got a variant of this disease that is 50 to 70% more infectious than previously. We already know that drivers were amongst the highest rate of infection and fatalities was amongst private hire drivers. Sadly, our occupation does lead to some people or many people having underlying conditions, maybe being a bit overweight or whatnot, because it's a sedentary job. I don't know what to say. It is very dangerous. If you can afford, if you can get the government support and you can afford to stay off the road, I would probably stay off the road, but I realize that's not realistic for many people. But be warned, and be in full knowledge and understanding that even with masks and everything, this is a very infectious variant that's 50 to 70% more infectious. And I think this is going to be I think we're going to see the worst before we see it better over the next 3 months or so.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, to be honest, 80% of the business was around Christmas time, like November, December was where people make money. And even like tonight, like New Year Eve.
Yeah, it should be the biggest night of the year. Yeah.
And make money. But I mean, I know drivers going to be out there and people will make some money, but it's not what it used to be. And it's not because it's just unfortunate because of the pandemic around us. Now, most of the places that we're in at the moment, a lot of our members, they're all more or less into tier 4 now. So this is something like hopefully in the next week or 2 weeks' time, we need to start looking and working together as drivers of how we could push the government to get some kind of support, because there's no money. You're not making any money. You have a choice between staying at home or trying to go out there and make enough money just to pay your bills. And even then, you're just paying your bills and you're exposed to the virus, which you then bring back home to your families. And so that's something that we're going to be looking into. What else is it, James?
Well, I think so. COVID. I mean, I think that's it, and we have to redouble our response to that. And so I think, we'll be organizing some meetings, some membership meetings. So those are your members on that topic. If you're not a member, join. But we need to look. We were successful last year in what we kicked off. I think we need to look at this again. Because it's going to be rough. It's going to be a rough couple of months. It's the safest if you're not working, but if you are working, how do you keep safe? But also, what kind of financial support do you need when you're not earning or you're not able to get out there? And also, we need to look at the rental market as well and see what the people are not being ripped off by rental companies at a time when the industry's let's face it, if you return the vehicle, they're not going to be renting it out anyway. So we need those rental companies need to get real. COVID, so tougher regulatory environment. what we've seen is Uber lost its license. It was put under immense pressure to introduce this facial recognition that's causing so much problems. We see from the witness statements from Uber's case, where they argued for the license in September, that Uber went to TfL only one day before TfL revoked the license, to promise them this facial recognition. And TfL, make no mistake, pushed them to introduce it. And they have. Now Ola's on the ropes, and Ola's going to be doing the same thing. Bolt just had a round of funding. It's a, so it's a pre-public company. It raises venture capital money. And the latest round of fundraising from venture capitalists was for, guess what? Artificial intelligence, facial recognition, all of that crap. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't have those things, but for me, it's new problems. It's new problems that we need to deal with. Because when they're running these kinds of tools, they're doing it for compliance purposes. If you invest in facial recognition and you find that nobody was doing anything wrong anyway, because very few are, then you have to make a few victims, don't you? Otherwise, how do you convince yourself that you've invested, hundreds of millions of pounds in this technology and you can catch anything? There's something wrong. So, TfL want to see you slinging people off the platform as well. So this is a quite a tough, brutal regulatory environment, certainly in London, and spreading out through the rest of the country as well, because TfL sets the pace. And I think they're trying to use this type of hammering on people with technology as a means of compliance and enforcement. And that's why, another reason why we have to get on top of the data, because we can't defend ourselves if we don't have access to the data, if we don't have access to the technology that's being used. So tougher regulatory environment coming. I mean, just one thing on the automated decision making I wanted to point out with what we learned in court last week against Ola. Ola admit to calculating, for every one of you working for Ola, a fraud probability score. Can you imagine the balls on them to make such a thing? So they're estimating what's the likelihood that Yassine is going to break the rules relative to me. So Yassine is less likely to break the rules than I am, right? Yassine is a 9 out of 10 kind of guy, whereas I'm a 2 out of 10 kind of guy. And that factor is put into the automated dispatch decision-making process, as well as all the other stuff, the complaints. We already know that. They already tell us that. So but they won't tell us, they won't tell an individual driver what their score is or the basis of that calculation. Well, that's illegal. That has to change. But there's a host more stuff like that going on that we have to get stuck into. That's just one thing. Anyway, tougher regulatory environment, more surveillance, more algorithmic management. We need to get stuck into it. International Alliance, Yassine, what's up for that in 20? I think that's our last topic on my list today.
I mean, yeah, I did touch on that briefly. So I think we've done the groundwork. We laid the foundation. So hopefully next year is going to be a good year for us as a driver, being part of this international community. So we've got a lot of cases happening around the world, and hopefully together it's more of a threat to companies like Uber and Ola. And don't forget, Ola's stronghold, home country, is India, and the guys there in India, IFEC, they're quite organized and they're doing a lot to help the drivers there. And we'll be sharing their success here, and vice versa. So hopefully when we get the outcome for our worker status, these kind of cases would help those guys there. So for example, like when we filed against Uber back in 2015, the guys we actually won in 2016 when we got the verdict. But the guys in South Africa, in Cape Town, they filed a similar case in 2016 against Uber. But they lost on the ground that they have to take the case to Amsterdam. But if we were able to share our document and our legal argument and our court verdict with them, we could have got that overturned. But because we were isolated, we didn't know the guys there and they didn't know us, they lost. So, I mean, like I said, it's just a victory. It's going to be a win-win for us. We're sharing resources. We're learning from each other. And above it, we're fighting together and we have that unity as an international community. So, yeah.
Also interesting, Yassine, on the worker status case, there was one in Australia this week. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, yeah, I mean, again, so for Uber to actually go and settle that case, it shows, it shows that,
They were terrified.
yeah, they're terrified, and it's a lot easier for companies to settle. That's the easy way out. Yeah, that is the easiest way out. And it's the same with us guys. Like once we come out of the Supreme Court, and there's like it only started off with 19 drivers. Yeah, 19 drivers initially filed, and it's gone into thousands. So probably we're how much do you reckon, James? 10,000 drivers are part of this claim right now?
Oh, well, you and I are privy to some privileged information about that, but I would say it's 5 figures for sure.
Yeah. So it's definitely, so it's definitely like there's big numbers, and there you go. Like people say it, but it's always a small group of people that come together, and it's a majority that win. So we just got to keep fighting, keep doing what we're doing, and I think the most important message for all of us is: look, ADTU, App Drivers and Couriers Union, we're the first union actually in the UK that's dedicated for drivers. Yeah, there is no other like union that is just solely focused on the courier and the private hire industry, and that's us. So if you want to join a union, I see a lot of drivers post. Even today, we got comments about having a union. We've got a union there that at the forefront, and this union is your union. If you want it to be strong, you got to be part of it. And it's not just about. I mean, you could join as a member, and you don't want to do anything, that's your choice. But if you really want to see action and you want us to grow stronger, we need volunteers. We need people coming forward. So if you're one of the guys watching today and you want to come next year, like one of your revolution for next year is to help and grow this movement, just contact us. Yeah, there's plenty of stuff that we could get you guys to do and help us to support us.
Yeah, so we've absolutely. Yassine, the one shout out we didn't do is to Birmingham.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Something about that. No, I'll let you, James. Go ahead. Go on.
Well, I mean, Birmingham has always been a kind of a stronghold for us, and it's an urban confluence. So we got Solihull drivers, we got Birmingham drivers, we got Wolves drivers, and others. But yeah, it's a challenging time in Birmingham. Well, firstly, BAM cop. There was a motorcycle cop who fancied himself as a taxi and private hire enforcer in Birmingham. And he used to go around the country, believe it or not, sort of lecturing other police forces and licensing authorities on how to get tough with private hire drivers. But he was particularly favored the hackney trade and went after private hire drivers in a very unfair and, in my opinion, discriminatory way. Anyway, I mean, unfortunately for him, I don't like to rejoice in other people's misery, but he got dismissed from the police force this year with a big cloud over his head. So I hope Birmingham Council has learned its lesson. That's not the way. Those are not the type of people that should be involved in policing. Yeah, so big challenges in Birmingham. Very active campaign. Road closures. That we've seen the type of local low traffic neighborhood bus gates. That kind of activity going on in Birmingham, and our members there under Habib and Steve are tackling that. Who else is involved in that, Yassine?
We got Carl. We got
Carl, of course.
So that's going to be something that we need to kick off next year, and it's something similar to London. Like for example, we get a lot of roads getting closed in London as well. Yeah. Unfortunately, someone did post a comment early on about congestion charge, and I think Jane covered that. That was a fight for the previous year, 2019. We're going past that, and I wouldn't, to be honest, like the congestion charge. There's no way we could overturn that. It's too late to fight that. Yeah?
Listen, I almost went to jail over that one, Yassine, as you know.
There you go. Yeah, that's a highlight of 2020. Started it off. 2020, when James Farrow was about to get locked up for a year. Yeah.
Well, Yassine, you know what? I mean, it was an attack on all of us. Yeah. It was the police and TfL went after us collectively and tried to put me in jail over it. There was a protest in Parliament Square, and I was singled out. They said I assaulted a police officer because I used a megaphone and a noise, apparently constituted an assault. They wouldn't drop it. Went to Crown Court, criminal trial, jury impaneled. 3 days of listening to this crap from the police, lying through their teeth, actually, by the way, and we caught them out. They sat there and lied and lied and lied. And luckily, we had from so many of you, friends, colleagues, comrades, gave us footage from your phones that day, and we used it, played it back to the police and say, oh, really? Is that what happened? You want to have a look at that? And oh, no, that didn't happen. Yeah. Well, I mean, really, and TFL, we called TFL. TFL was giving the police information about me, Yassine, and others in the run-up to that particular demonstration that year in 2019. So, look, it was an attack on us because we were getting too strong. That's what that was about. But they failed, and I don't think they'll try that again. On the congestion charge, it's a rough one because the problem is that when you go to the High Court, you're asking the High Court to overturn an elected official's mayor of London is the largest single electorate in Europe, which means that there's more people in that electorate voting for that one office than in any other vote for an elected official anywhere else in Europe. It's a huge electorate. That mayor has a big mandate, and if the mayor's administration decides that on balance he's got to reduce congestion and we have to pay it, and the benefit is this and the cost is that and the cost we're paying for it, I guess. It's very difficult to get a judge to overturn that decision. Now that case, we started that case. Muhammad Ali was a witness in that case, and who else? Anyway, that case went to the Court of Appeal and lost. There's nowhere else to go with that except the Supreme Court, and I don't think the Supreme Court are going to hear it. I hate to say it, but this is very difficult to overturn. Now, the case we need to look at, the next case we're looking at is these low traffic neighborhoods, these bus gates and so on. The taxi trade have brought a High Court case on that over the Bishopsgate bus gate. Watch that. Let's see what the court decides there. It'll give us a bit of a sense. But the congestion charge, I'm sorry, I don't know any other way to get that overturned, because COVID now has made it more difficult than ever, because it's a respiratory disease. It affects people, particularly if they've got respiratory conditions. How do you now go to the Supreme Court and say, well, leave COVID aside, we should overturn that mayor's decision on congestion? It's very difficult. It's not the answer I want. It's not the answer I like. It's very unjust, but I don't know any other way to overturn that. I'm just being realistic about it. But we'll keep fighting. We'll keep trying. But I don't know I don't see that there's another legal avenue open on that one, I'm afraid. Anything else, Yassine? I mean, so we're going to see. IAATW is going to rev up this year, though, right?
Not IAATW, ADCU as well. So next year is our year.
ADCU
is our year. I think we've been on because it meant to be a 15 minutes quick recap,
an hour.
but we've been on for 57 minutes. So I think let's just end it now. But I think, look, we've done a lot, especially based on the circumstances and the situation. We just got to be proud of ourselves for the work we've done, for the achievement we achieved. And the only thing is, it's down to you guys to help us and support us by sharing this video, share like the links for our website, tell drivers about it, because a lot of people contact us saying they've never heard of the union. They never heard of it. So, I mean, it's just difficult to reach out to each and every one. But if you could do your bits, tell drivers about the union and the purpose of being part of this union.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, we're still a union of volunteers. Nobody gets paid. Every penny we have goes into you, and that's the way it is. We will open an office, but at the moment it's too dangerous. It's pointless because we can't put anybody in it while this pandemic is going on. But we're a registered trade union too, by the way. We're registered with the certification officer, so we're regulated as a regulated trade union. So we're operating to a very high standard. But it's your trade union, and the bigger we are, the stronger we are. It's your trade union. It's not mine. It's not Yassine's. It's not the committee's. It's your trade union, and the whole point of a trade union is to equalize the balance in power between somebody like Uber, Transport for London, Ola, Bolt, Addison Lee, A to B, Amber, Network, Capital Cars, whoever it is, balance the power. You can only do that when we all join together in strength and numbers, and we pool our resources, and we pool our political power, and we pool our efforts. And please, you know, first step is join the union. Yassine said, share the links, like the Facebook page, but get involved, join a committee, get involved, run, drive the campaign, drive an action. This is your union. It'll deliver for you, promise you. But you need to get involved.
Anyway, guys, we're gonna end it here. Happy New Year to you guys.
Happy New Year.
And
Happy New Year to you, Yassine.
Yeah, Happy New Year, James. Yeah, and hopefully I'll see you soon next year.
Yeah.
Depends when. But anyway, thank you everyone. Thank you for watching. The link is at the bottom of this video to join us. Anyway, good night everyone, and enjoy your time with your family. Make the most of what's left of this year. Thank you everyone.
Let's hope for a better 2021.